We're live.
All right, welcome. I'd like to call the October board meeting of the Central School District 13J School Board back to order after finishing our executive session. So the meeting is now in order. And I'd like to invite you all to join us in the flag salute and just sure.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, with that, I will turn the floor over to the superintendent to review the agenda.
Evening to everyone and welcome to October in a very warm day and through the week. So we will begin with recognition. We have several recognitions today. We will then have a student report from METCHA, which we're excited to have. Again, we are, as the board requested that through our retreats, having a mix of students come and share some of the things that are going on within the school. We'll next go into our standing reports where we have two. We're going to share information about fall data, which includes state assessment, as well as some of our district data that we are reporting on related to the strategic plan. We'll have an update from nutrition services. I have a short report specifically focused on policy, and that is the extent of my report. We'll go into board reports, the consent agenda, and we actually do not have any business agenda items this evening. We'll then go to comments by individual board members, and then we will go into executive session. The only change is we did remove one of the policies. We found something that we would like to go back over in the subcommittee, and I'll share more about that. So that is the one, there is one change to the agenda.
Okay. All right. With that, we'll proceed with some recognitions. And am I up first?
You are up first.
So as we are establishing a forum or a norm of recognizing people that Central School District works with throughout the community, tonight we want to honor and recognize community partnerships we have with our first responder agencies, Independence Police Department, Monmouth Police Department, and Polk County Fire District number 1. Leading up to the first day of school, these departments began the work of reminding our community to slow down in school zones and that student walk zones are everywhere. They broadcast the upcoming return to school and 20 miles per hour throughout the two cities. Once school started, officers from both Independence and Monmouth Police Departments could be seen not just at our school buildings, but throughout town. We are certain that their presence served as reminders to all to slow down and look for pedestrians and bicyclists. We're grateful to the work of such amazing partners who take the time to educate the community and to work all together to keep students safe. So with that, if we could get the representatives from those organizations to come up, I think that's Jennifer. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm gonna make a, yeah, she's gonna make a scoop picture. You want to go right here?
Yes, that's perfect. Thank you.
That's it.
Nope, one more.
Oh, we have one more.
Actually, and I'm going to bring her up front. So joining us this evening is Jill Love, who is the advisor of the Future Business Leaders of America, to recognize 2, I believe, of our outstanding students. So please come join us to the front here.
Hi, my name is Jill Love. I am
Microphone over.
fancy. I am the advisor at the high school for FBLA, and this is our 8th year of having FBLA at the high school and our first year of having students actually earn the trip and get to go to nationals. To get to a national competition, these girls and some other of our FBLA club members had to participate in regionals. And it's where they pick a couple business type. I can't think of my words. Different business topics that they'd like to compete in. There's a written test and also a presentation or performance type test. And to make it to the next level, you have to place in the top 10 at that regionals. Both of these girls did. And then at the state level, which happens every spring in Portland, you have to make it in the top 3 to be able to go on to nationals. This year, nationals was held in Chicago. And with a very generous grant from the Verna Duncan Foundation, we were able to send 3 of our members to Chicago at the end of June. Della Gratzinger competed in Intro to Business Concepts, and Faith Fitz competed in Help Desk. And although they didn't place at the national level, they had an awesome experience, and I'm really excited for this year because they're coming back with the real vision and excitement of FBLA. And we're working on presentation skills, one of the things of FBLA.
Now is a great time to practice.
Jill, can you let our audience know what FBLA stands for in case they don't know?
Yes, FBLA is Future Business Leaders of America. It is a CTSO organization that is open for middle school, high school, and collegiate levels. And it's every aspect of business, whether it's accounting or marketing or graphics design or coding or job interviews or help desk, everything is incorporated into it. The 3rd member that participated at nationals, Josiah Sage, graduated this year, so he's off doing his college things now. But he was so excited because he found his place in FBLA through business networking and infrastructures. And he's like, I never knew there was a club or something I could participate. And that's like totally his passion. So I'm very excited for these 2.
That's awesome.
young ladies.
Well, I think Jennifer has.
Yeah, so again, we're because this is tied to our strategic plan, so it's the student growth and achievement recognition. This is presented to, again, both Faith Fitz and Della Gratzinger for representing Central School District at the FBLA National Competition in 2022. So congratulations to both of you, and Emily's gonna make us take some pictures here.
Bernard Duncan was my 5th grade teacher. I know.
Thank you.
Looking forward to this year.
Thanks, Joe.
Okay, with that, then we'll move on to our student reports and
Yes, so joining us today, let me get my notes here. And I believe they are both here, correct? Joining us today, one of the things that we've wanted to do as the board shared is every year we have student voice that comes to the board. That has usually been ASBEC and Power Peers. Just in the conversations, we wanted to reach out because there are other clubs that are going, and not only at the high school, but at the middle school, we're working with them as well to come and present to the board just of things that are going on within the schools. So with that, I'm going to bring to the floor from our Mecha Club. Is it Brianna Prado Zabida?
Yeah.
And Melissa Diaz Vaca. Please join us up here. And I know that we have a presentation that will be posted here in a second to share all the wonderful things that are going on. Yep.
So my name is Brianna Prado, and I'm Melissa Diaz, and we come from Mecha. Mecha stands for Movimiento Estudiantil Chicanx de ASMA. Next slide. Next slide.
She got it. Yep.
In November of 2021, we put up an altar celebrating El Dia de los Muertos. We made marigolds flowers out of tissue paper. Next slide. There was also a PSTP lesson and activity where the whole school students and staff had the opportunity to create their own calavera. As the day went on, the altar grew and students and staff added their own ofrendas, as well as alebrijes and their own drawings of their loved ones. Next slide. In November of 2021, a group of seniors, Metro members and non-Metro members went to the Cesar Chavez Leadership Conference at Peru. This was a great opportunity for them to interact with other Latinx youth from different parts of the state and explore their options for higher education. Next slide. Our most successful fundraiser of the 2021-2022 school year was in April. We raised over $600. We would like to thank the community for their support. Fundraising allows us to attend events like the Cesar Chavez Leadership Conference and purchase graduation campus for our seniors. Next slide. In May of 2022, we had a cleanup day after school. We take pride in being part of the Panther family and taking care of our school and community. Next slide. In April 2022, a group of juniors, Metro members, and non-Metro members went to the Cesar Chavez Leadership Conference at Western Oregon University. This was a great opportunity for them to interact with other Latinx youth from different parts of the state and explore their options for higher education. Congratulations to our 2022 seniors. Here are a few of our seniors. Carlos Rodriguez, and he got the FA Alumni Finley Academic Scholarship, IVB Thomas Temecula Scholars, Andres Rincon Diversity Commitment Scholarship, IVB Thomas. Daisy Torres Flores, Diversity Commitment Scholarship, Cesar Chavez Leadership Conference and Scholarship. Vanya Martinez, Ford Family Foundation Scholar, Diversity Commitment Scholar, and Cesar Chavez Leadership Conference Scholar. Next slide. So Mecha is an all-year thing, but this month we have Loteria with Mecha on October 13th in the CHS cafeteria. We have the Cesar Chavez Leadership Conference coming up only for seniors on October 28th. We have the Dia de los Muertos PSP activity in Alpar on October and November. We don't have the dates yet. We also have the Cesar Chavez Leadership Conference for juniors, sophomores, and freshmen in spring of 2023. We have school cleanup, fundraising, and much more events to be planned. That's all.
Thank you.
That's great.
That's nice.
Who's the leader of your group? Is it a teacher, a specific teacher that's?
So we have advisors. We have Boris over there, and we have Marco Akira as our advisors. But we also have like a class count, like a council within the group.
Mhm.
So this Wednesday, we're gonna have elections to elect the president and the vice president, all that stuff for mentioned.
That's awesome.
How many kids are involved in that?
Right now, we've only had 2 meetings, I believe, so we're still getting new members each meeting. Right now, we have around 20, and there are a lot of, and they're very mixed from all groups.
Does Mecha, do they promote like community events that are happening throughout the year? Are they involved in those kind of things like the community fiesta, for example?
Been involved in the community stuff, but that is something that we would like to
Yeah.
be involved in as well.
I happen to know the person that runs it.
Yeah. me too.
Yeah, we might be related, but yeah, like the princesses this year had brought up maybe wanting to be a part of Mecha, I think, and I think that's pretty important for them to get involved in those along with the fiesta. So yeah, let's get in contact about kind of making a connection some sort.
So we plan to make partner up with the community outside of schools.
Awesome.
I was also wondering who organizes then that Cesar Chavez Leadership Conference? Do you guys organize it or you just attend it and it's organized by someone else?
We attended, but it's organized by someone else. It's like a big organization, so it's not just us, it's other people throughout the state as well, other clubs, other Metro members.
It's a little bit hard for me to hear you. So where's it at?
It's at Western Oregon University.
Okay, so it's at Western, and who else attends besides your group?
Other Mecha clubs throughout the state.
Oh, wow, that's amazing that it happens to be at Western. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. So I'm just curious, is that something, I mean, I would like to learn more about that. So what's the best way for me to learn more about that?
We can put that in the Friday report to the board.
That'd be
Again,
great.
yep.
Thank you very
Absolutely.
much. Congratulations on great work so far, girls.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks
Thank
a
you
lot.
very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we are now at the part in our agenda where we hear communication from the floor. Do we have any? I don't have any lips up here. Do we have
I
any?
believe we have one.
Okay, so just briefly, welcome to the school board meeting. Comments from the community are entertained during this time designated under communications and public comments. If you wish to speak, fill out the comment card and turn it into the board secretary, or you can fill out a online application as well. Speaker comments in this form are limited to 3 minutes, but the board welcomes additional information in writing. Personnel laws prohibit the board from hearing public comments about individuals during an open meeting. All complaints must go through board's approved process as outlined in board policy KL. And you can find that form on the website. Typically, a speaker's comment is taken under advisement to allow time for the board to review an issue. However, the board chair or other board members may ask for additional information or may convey to the speaker some information that addresses their comment. Please note on the speaker card if you would like to receive follow-up communication. So again, thank you for your attendance. And who did we have?
I believe Emily joining us today is John talking about facilities.
You're on, John.
All right, good evening. Everybody hear me?
Again,
All right. Thank you to all the board members for this opportunity to speak. I just want to speak about our experience as a family with both a student at Monmouth Elementary, but also as a participant in youth sports, and really some of the challenges with scheduling as far as use of school facilities by external groups. More specifically, she's in YMCA youth volleyball. The school started and we still didn't know what our schedule was, which days of the week, which has downstream effects on which coaches can be available and a number of other things. So the schedule was not finalized from the YMCA until the week school started. And I spoke with them, and from what they explained to me is that they provided what their facility needs were back in July. And I had opportunity to speak to Central School District staff. And from what I understand from that conversation is that the staff that handle those kinds of things are out and not back until August. Then the priority is for school district activities first before doing any partner organizations such as YMCA or Central Youth Sports. So the reason I wanted to elevate this is that many kids have multiple activities going right up until the activity actually starts to even find out what day of the week, let alone time or facility is really not fair to them, fair to the parents who are trying to juggle multiple activities. We can't have them all kind of be in the air at that point. And the other aspect of it is I understand that the school district owns these facilities and there's a certain prioritization should be given. However, it gave the impression in this case that these other youth sports were kind of given the scraps or, okay, at the last minute, fine, this is what you give you. And I think it's important to show these kids that what they do, does matter or has similar weight. And the last piece is that there wasn't a clear sense of, okay, in a situation where things go well, what is either the target or the requirement of a reasonable time by which parents, kids can know when their activities will be. If it's 1 week, 2 weeks, I wasn't able to get an answer on that. I frankly think that's really unacceptable. We ask for students to be at places at certain times when school starts. I really think staff should have, a similar expectation, or at least there are extenuating circumstances, et cetera, but there should at least be, okay, this is what our goal is. We have something to aim for. So what I would ask of the board as far as this matter goes is better allocation of resources if it's getting started earlier, if it's doing parallel tracks of we release some time blocks for other sports or other activities that aren't central school districts. So those don't have to, be figured out at the last moment. And just kind of a reminder that we talk about partner organizations, that we treat them as such, not as subordinate or inferior or less important. And I know that there are probably other ways that those other organizations can present things or do things to help make scheduling easier. But I guess would ask to kind of keep that in mind. Well, the CSD owns the facilities, the taxpayers pay for the facilities, and even students that participate in the activities, their parents through living here support the building. So please give that consideration. And my last topic, also facilities rated, but a different matter is I got to learn a little bit more about Henry Hill. Child was also a participant at softball there. And it sounds like an interesting situation with the kind of the long-term disposition of those fields. They have, they're useful for central use sports, for softball in the spring. The conditions of the field could certainly be improved. I do understand that because there is no Henry Hill, school in the traditional sense, that those sport fields are nominally owned by the school district, but not of a needed use. I'd really encourage, as part of this long-range planning for facilities, is to look for a longer term solution for the ownership and maintenance of Henry Hill, not expecting world-class facilities, but basic drainage, if it's organizing volunteers to come pick weeds in the infield. So, it's a little more playable. I think some ideal like a parks district would be awesome, but if it's something of a ownership by the city or a joint ownership management by both Monmouth Independents, recognizing that those fields actually benefit a wider community, I think it would be really fantastic to see some long range improvement there with Henry Hill. So that's all my comments. Appreciate you hearing me out on this, and happy to take any questions or anything anyone else has.
Thank you very much, John.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And any other public comment?
I do not believe so.
All right. That moves us then to our standing reports and programs, and we'll start with a presentation on the state assessments and district data. Which I assume you're doing.
I am not actually. So joining us this evening, hopefully, is two of our executive directors, Director Howman and Flannery, to give an update with our fall data, as well as some of the action steps the district is taking as we focus on student growth and achievement, one of the district's strategic goals. So with that, I am turning it over to the two of them.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay, good. Emily, are you going to control the slides? Looks like you are. Okay. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to talk about data tonight and some of the data that we're beginning the year with. Could you go ahead and onto the next slide, please? So just to kind of ground us in what and how we're using data, you can see on the left-hand side in the pink are the areas of our strategic plan. The next section over is the measures that we're, whoa sorry, don't advance yet. Next section is the measures of how we're looking at measuring how we're doing in each of those strategic areas, and then frequency, and then the data source that we're using for that. So we're going to kind of focus on a few areas tonight. You can do the next slide, please. So we're going to talk about state assessments, universal screener, and chronic absenteeism and behavior, and then Julie's going to be focusing on talking with you today a little bit about some of the action steps that we have in place already and some of the work that we're going to be doing throughout the year. Next slide, please. So just to kind of remind everybody that the assessments are the tools and practices we're using to collect and interpret information to make decisions at the classroom, district, and state level. So that's the overall reason that we do assessments. State assessments, there are 3 content areas that are required. And you see those laid out there as far as language arts, math, and science. And then in parentheses, you see the grade levels at which that we do those tests every year. SBAC scores for the state of Oregon for this school year, just to give you kind of a picture of how they last school year, just give you a picture that across the entirety of the state, schools are down on average, down 10% in language arts and 9% in math. And it's one other thing with framing on this is that the state is making certain suggestions about how we use this data going into this school year. Previous to COVID, this data from SBAC was used to help set student learning goals for all of our teachers, all of our administrators, and all of us that are working within the licensed realm of work in the district. This year, the state, because of the impact of COVID, because we know that there was lower participation across the state and lower participation in our district as well, for a variety of factors, is asking that all school districts consider not using SBAC scores for student learning goals, but focus on the idea of using that information for growth and foundation piece for where we're starting out this year and the growth that we're going to be trying to go for the school year. So just a little bit of framing on that. Go on to the next slide. This shows our language arts. And in the blue, you'll see where we were in 18-19, which is the last time that we had the test being done. And then last year's in the orange. And you'll see that while we are down in most areas, there are some areas that we weren't. And in most, as you're going through this data, we're doing a little bit better than the state average in a lot of these things, which again is a testament to the hard work that happened with our staff last year and the work of the students last year. So next slide. This is our math scores. Some of the things we saw a little bit more in math last year than in the language arts as far as some drops, but again, similar results across the state. And last slide is science. So those are science scores. And while there are many areas that we saw slip, we also did see some areas that we saw some gain, which is really exciting to see too. So going on to the next section is we're going into universal screener results. And last year, as you know, that we implemented a new universal screener for both language arts and for math. We were doing work both at the elementary level and at the middle school level. So if you could go on to the next slide. And just a reminder about universal screeners. So we're using FastBridge, and these are test-specific scores that indicate the student's risk of performing below a future, usually end of the year performance target. So when you're looking at these, you're going to see that the brightest pink on the far left is high risk, some risk, low risk, and then college pathways. This is giving an indication of where the students are at and whether or not at the end of the year, again, that there's a prediction that they'll be on track. This is based on data that's pre-COVID, really, because they had about 7-8 years of data that they used to set these benchmarks for all the schools are using, and they had about around 2 million students that they sent those standards off of. So early reading and early math, K through 1, and then you're going to see A reading and A math, 2nd through 12th, as far as what was used to measure students where they're at right now. So if going on to the next slide.
Before Brian goes on to that, just for clarity, we are just giving this snapshot of the next slides in K5. Although we do it 6 through 12, this is specifically for today, just K through 5.
Yes.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you. Thank you, Jen. Next slide. So want to show you last year, if you look at the far, I'm reading from left to right here now. Last year, you'll see that the first measure there was where our kindergartners were coming in last year. And the second in the middle there of that far left side is where our Is that moving the cursor? Can you see where my cursor is? No, okay,
Okay,
I'll stop doing that then. Okay, that's just for me. But anyway, oh, I saw somebody move the cursor. So in the middle there, where it says 21, further over, the other way. There you go. All right, great. So that is where our kindergarten students ended the year. And we knew that there was going to be some of that going on for last year, because we knew the impacts of for all of our students with the previous years of COVID. But the thing I think we just really want to celebrate the next piece over is the 26, and that's where we're starting off the year as first graders. So that's where the students are, and the measures change and they start to increase in complexity as far as from that first one of 47 to the middle. The students were expected to be performing at higher levels of complexity of what we're asking them to be able to do as kindergartens at the end of the year. So it's a natural drop, but to see that over the summer there wasn't slip is really awesome. And a few things to kind of point out to applaud is the teachers and students work last year throughout the year, but then also some of the summer programming. We're going to be kind of digging in to look at specifically with our data what we're seeing as far as results from summer and the impact of some of the things that we put in place to help out students in the summertime. But then if you look on the next side of the we're looking at first grade. So this is first grade, how they start off, how they finish the year is the next column. And then we're seeing already some rising up. And so you're thinking about the end of last year, we still had a few weeks left before the end of the school year. And so some of the work that was done at the very end of last year, the work that happened at the beginning of the last year, we're already seeing some growth and improvement for that group of students that's now in second grade. And I want to point out to just, Julie probably talk about this a little bit more at the very end, but we have the teachers and support administrators and everybody else has been working on implementing the new language arts curriculum. Did amazing work over the summer and have a very exciting core curriculum that they're implementing this year. So we're seeing some hopeful things already at the beginning of the year, and we're only 4 weeks in. So can we go into the next one? So you see similar things on these grade levels going from second grade, beginning of the year, second grade, the end of the year, and third grade. We're not seeing slip, we're seeing some steadiness in how they're performing. And then you're seeing some improvement there with the third grade from the beginning of the year, middle to the beginning of this year, seeing an 8% improvement, then showing some nice growth. Next slide. You've seen that the trend continues throughout with language arts as far as what we're seeing. Go into the next slide, please. And this is, we're looking here is mathematics. And we're seeing that there wasn't, again, a large impact over the summer, a little bit more so when we get into second grade, but still seeing really good starting point and point of starting for our students who are going into the school year.
Brian,
Next year. Oh,
Brian,
yeah.
So one of the things that I want to point out that with reading last year, there was an intensive focus on working on the reading because of some of the missed instruction. And so school staff worked really hard, and we did a pretty intensive intervention program where folks were working, and then I think families did some after school and summer work as well. And so seeing a little bit of a dip with math, the excitement of the reading, the amount of time and effort that was put in last year is really exciting. Anyway, I just wanted to share that as you're starting the math, that it's not, it's still a little bit of slippage, but it's that there was a pretty intensive focus that I think we can see that in the reading results as well.
I think thank you, Julie. I think the other thing to remember again with the math is that what they were measured on in that first slice there, looking over at grade 1 fall, and what they're being measured on grade 2, very different things. And so that's one of the things that is going to be exciting to look at when we get to, we do this measure 3 times a year. And so I'm looking forward to when we get to look at the mid-year for this, because it will give us a how they're doing on some of the new material. Right now, this is showing us both some of the things that they've done before, but also some of the pieces that are brand new to them. Okay, next. Again, seeing quite a bit of stability throughout the next grade levels there. And the last one as well. And again, can you go back 1 second? Sorry. Nice to see that growth from 4th to 5th grade. So we're seeing some good things there. Okay, so we're gonna. Yep.
Hold on, Brian. Before Brian goes on, and I want to be with the board. This is a celebration. When you are looking at again a point in time where you've heard us talk in the past about when school ends, and there's a thing called the summer slide where we do have to do some reteaching. What this data shows us is that, one, what we did last year in reading and what we have continued to do with students and our staff is working. Again, it's a celebration point that we need to, because again, that summer slide, when you look at reading, did not take place. To watch, and again, this is cohorted data, right? So we are really looking at the same kids. We understand that some kids may have moved out and some kids may have moved in, but holistically, when you're going from the fall of 21 to the fall of 22, looking at kinder to 1, 1 to 2, et cetera, that's a huge step considering what we have been through in a school district. So I am pausing as the superintendent to celebrate the work of our kids and our students, to celebrate the work of our staff, and to celebrate the work of our family, because we couldn't do this without them either. This is just one of those moments, especially the last couple of years. And I know we still have a great amount of work to do. So as I say this, doesn't mean that I think everything is glorious and that we don't need to continue to improve. We do. But this is a significant point for what we have been through in the last 2 years of the success of what our students are doing, our staff, and our families. So again, as a superintendent, I have to pause and just state that publicly because of the great work everyone is doing, and we will continue to do, because again, we want these needles to move and be up in the 50s, 60s, 70s each and every year as we look at these data points. So there's work still to be done, but huge celebration point for everyone.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Jen. If we go on to the next section, and this actually supports what Jen was just talking about too, as far as going into this year. Just want to remind people about chronic absenteeism as far as the terms there you can look at. So, student who has missed 10% or more of the days for which they were enrolled, that makes that student then would be considered chronically absent. And so, right now we're looking at the number of days that we have so far this year. That will change, that will balance out a little bit over the course of the year, because we have roughly 191 days. Well, it's fewer for student contact, but we have quite a few days that in the school year right now we're only 5 weeks in, but we're going to show you the data based on the 5 weeks in. Just to show you the starting point, if you go to the next slide. Starting point was where I'm showing you is where we left off last year. Where we ended the year last year is we had 43.13% of our students were chronically absent at the end of last school year when we looked at the entirety of the school year. And so those, which has a huge impact on what we're able to do with kids when it comes to both helping them the first time that we're teaching anything, but also the interventions that we want to put in place. So if we go on to the next slide. We're starting off the year at a higher point. That was the end of last year, but that was also almost identical to what our mid-year point was last year as far as chronic absenteeism. So we're seeing that we're doing quite a bit better right now at the beginning of this year than we were last year. Still obviously going to be room for growth, but also want to consider the fact that we're still seeing impact of students more sick than we would in years prior to COVID. So all those things considering, this is really promising to see the beginning of the year. This is a snapshot from, I think, the beginning of last week. So, and now we have our data that's live and usable for the staff to be looking within 5 Lab for where we're at with our chronic absenteeism. So if we go on to the next slide. This is just a breakdown by grade level. And I want to look at the far left. We're still not where we want to obviously want to be. We want to keep on growing, but we're seeing better numbers in some of the areas that we were most concerned about. So like kindergarten last year, there was quite a bit of chronic absenteeism. We're seeing that come down a little bit. Still room to improve there, but it's looking better than where we started off last year. Next slide. Behavior data. So what we're looking at here is only going to focus in on at this level of talking about students that have been suspended or expelled. When the staff at the buildings are looking at their data, they're looking at a breakdown of all the different types of discipline that is happening, the behavior outcomes, all the measures that are more extensive there at the building level. But this is just looking at students suspended or expelled. So if we could go to the next slide. And so you're seeing a breakdown of in-school and out-of-school suspension so far this year. So we have a total of 26 suspensions so far this year across our 5 buildings, and those represent 16 students. And so of those 16 students, we have some students that have been suspended more than one time. Go on to the next slide. This gives a breakdown by grade level. And this gives a breakdown by gender. So we're seeing some things that have continued into this year as far as some patterns. And so some of the work that will be done going into the remainder of this year will be looking at some of the gender components, but also looking at which grade levels are we seeing the most in suspensions and what work can be done. So
I'm sorry to interrupt, but can I ask a quick question? I actually don't understand the definition of in-school versus out-of-school suspension.
Oh, yeah. Can you go back? Thank you for asking, Susan. Can you go back another one?
2 slides
Another
for me.
one. Sorry,
No, let's go
I'm
back.
not sure
There
which
you go.
one it is. There it is. Okay. So in school and out of school suspension. So when a student is in an out of school suspension, that means it sounds like really literal, but it is kind of literal. It's that their suspension is happening out of the location of the school. So they are at home. They're not in our building for that suspension. In school happens when you have, it could be as little as a period that a student is out of their classroom, or it could be as long as a day or two that they're out of the classroom. Those all trigger an in-school suspension designation. Does that make sense?
Oops. Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you for asking. So, and then Julie gets to tell us all the exciting things that are currently happening and right now and going to happen throughout the year.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
So I'm excited to share about our action steps. I think with in coordination with the school board, the administrators at the district level, at the school levels, working with leadership teams in the building and all staff, quite literally we're looking at the same types of, the same areas of focus. And so when we are looking at absenteeism, behavior, and then the academic component with reading and math, and the high school has a couple little extras with the 9th grade on track and 4-year graduation rate, 4 or 5-year graduation rate. We're all coming together to have a similar focus, but knowing that there's going to be some differences at the different levels. Throughout last year, we spoke a lot about our adoption of our K-5 language arts program. And the work that we did prior to that was the alignment of the standards with the K-5 staff, which was a lot of work and time over a couple of years. And then with the adoption and the implementation this year, staff are working really hard. It's a lot of work. It's a big list, moving through the initial launch of the program and continuing to provide support for our staff with ongoing coaching and support. So this year, next year, probably the first 3 years of the program, it really will be 3 years of implementation to help fine tune the program. It's comprehensive, has a lot of materials and supports, and staff are digging in. It's a lot. I keep saying it's a lot because that's what we're hearing. It's a lot. And so we're just trying to make sure that they feel supported and have different different supports for them, from coaching by the materials, the company, the benchmark company, who've been able to do a lot of amazing training and support for us as a district. We're going to be continuing with the implementation of our Character Strong at the K-8 level. That's our CEL Tier 1 program to help support with social emotional learning for students. We focus on specific skills across the schools, and students are participating in activities every day to practice their little targets. And you can go through the buildings often and see some of those, some of the work that students might have, or some of the areas that they're targeting, their monthly themes throughout the buildings at the K-8 level. Our middle school, high school will be jumping in to some standards alignment and looking at adoption of materials for language arts, math, and science, and English language proficiency standards. So we can look at some curriculum and move through some adoptions over the next couple of years. So we'll be starting that work in the next month or so, and meeting with folks from both middle school and high school. So that'll be exciting. We'll be providing updates as we move forward with that. In the building, folks are working on their short-term goals. Again, looking at the same focuses that we've already talked about, making sure that, again, everybody's moving forward with the same goals, with the same endpoint of looking at success and growth for all students. We had a presentation by Brian last week, 2 weeks ago, last week, on a logic model to help with looking at our goal development. And so some admin are twisting a little bit of the logic model in with some existing practices, and in collaboration with Brian, we'll be working with their staff for their goals. And then, as always, we'll be working with the board of directors and their November PLC, looking at our goal development and their goal development. And again, everybody walking together, so we have a common end game, and we're excited about that. At building admin and staff are gearing up for getting their goals submitted in the next couple weeks, and we can start checking our progress and being able to report some good things as we go out through the year.
And I'll just end on that with the one last piece. Is the goal of this is to hopefully by the start of this upcoming, we look at December, January as sort of the end, that we will have an outward facing on the website information tied to each of these goals, the actual data there, the strategies that the buildings are using, and then really what that looks like tied into our strategic plan. So that is really the work that is being done right now. Again, I'm going to say it, this is celebration. I can also tell you, we are about to get some other data that is embargoed, and I really can't talk a lot about it, but I'll just say I'm excited to be able to share that also in the upcoming months. So just again, huge acknowledgement to our students and our staff and our families of the work. This is hard. It has been 2 very difficult years. Again, the state achievement is difficult to look at, but again, I think it's about what we expected, and we need to move forward and go from there. But really excited on the work that's been shown on the universal screener. I can't say that enough in the work that's being done. And so again, you have to have moments of celebration, and this is one of those, and we're going to celebrate it, and we're going to learn from it, and then we're going to keep moving forward. Again, small celebrations, right? We have to celebrate and then continue to learn and adapt and move forward. So questions for any of us?
A question on for measuring chronic absenteeism. Is there a way to, and maybe you already have this, we just don't have it in the report, Brian, but is there a way to assess the degree of that 30.59%, how far off that 90% attendance mark they are, so what percentage of that is at 11% bad attendance, 12%, so we know how close we are to moving the needle on that. Right?
Yeah.
That would be helpful for me, and I'm sure it would be helpful to the buildings to figure out, okay, how steep is this hill that we have to climb?
And the buildings have the ability to look at that. And Byron, we had a lot of data to go through tonight, so we didn't go into as much detail this time on it. We did do that, if you remember, we broke that down either in the board or I can't remember if it was a PLC, but I think it was in a board meeting last year, or broke it down into detail. And we certainly could do that next time that we come together if we want to kind of zero in a little bit more on attendance to do that. I understand what you're saying, and I think that that's helpful to look at that too. And I can work with Jen on getting something out to you in a Friday report ahead of that next board meeting too, so that you can see where we're at. But that data is something that's available and used by buildings.
Thank you.
And I think that's one of the pieces we'll continue to talk about in our PLCs, because I do think that is, if that's the way, for example, the board wants to see the data, we can do that again. If the goal is to be outward facing, if that's what we feel that it might be best for the community to see, or that's just internally you want to see, I think that's going to be some of our learning as we go through this, I'm going to say the next 6 months, and what and how we want to share, because we can slice it and share. I mean, the 5 Lab gives us some flexibility to share in different ways. So we'll start there with a Friday report for monthly, and then continue to learn and figure out what's best for the public as well.
And let me just want to say one other thing on that is one of the things to keep in mind along those lines. It's a really great question, Byron, is that, I think we've had about 25 days, right? Roughly. And so if you think about that, right now, you're chronically absent at this point, because we've, I think, less than 25 days. You're chronically absent if you've missed 2 days. So and if you got a kiddo at this point in the year that has been sick for whatever, we know that some of the it's often like a 2 or 3 day kind of experience for a student to be out sick if they've got the flu or a lot of different things, right? And so it's something we always want to kind of keep in mind, is that early on in the year, it makes it that much easier for kids to be over in that category of chronically absent.
Yeah, good point. Thank you.
Thanks.
I had a
Brian.
question about the website. I think, Dr. Kavista, maybe this is similar to what you were just talking about, but I'm until you started talking about that, I was unclear about who the website is really for. Like, it seems like maybe teachers and people in the district, it makes sense, but I don't know. Is there a way parents can use this data? I don't understand.
Yeah, and that's our goal. Yeah. So the
Mhm.
end goal is to be able to have an outward facing. So right now, we have access internally to look at the data. That is specifically, again, it's been 2 years of cleaning data and making sure things are double checking, crossing our T's, dotting our I's with 5 Lab. That's one of the data programs that we use. So currently the administrators have access to that. They're using that with their staff, or they're starting those processes to set those short-term and long-term goals. And again, the goal is by the start of the school, by the start of 2023, we will have an outward facing for specifically the community to look at how we're doing. So some of those measures will be updated monthly. Some of them are done 2 or 3 times a year. Obviously, state achievement is done annually, so that'll be a more stagnant page. But the goal is really to show, here's the metric, here's the programming that goes with the metric, here's the strategies that buildings are using to really give the community an understanding of what we are doing and how we're holding ourselves accountable to increase both the academic and the social emotional learning of our students. So the goal is really the community. Right now it's more internal, but it will be, and then getting feedback from the community. How else might they want to see it, and what would that look like?
And so I'm sorry, would we provide some sort of a training video or something so that people that don't look at this for their normal job, so they'll be able to interpret it and understand it?
We will yeah, absolutely. That our goal is that it's pretty self-explanatory when you get onto the webpage, because that's what it should be. And so we're working through that right now. Again, we're just in the beginning stages of building that. We are waiting a lot on the work of what's happening in the buildings, first and foremost with their short-term and long-term goals and the logic model and the strategies they're using. You all are going to get to see that to set true long-term goals for the district. And so some of that data will come through that. part of it. But absolutely, if there's things that aren't unclear, we have parents that we can go to say, hey, look at this, what's not clear and where do we need to improve that? So any parent could get on, and it is pretty self-explanatory of what they're looking at.
Okay, thank you very much.
If you go to others, look at other states, they do that on a state level. So Washington, for example, has lots of measures that you can look at for any school district. And Oregon does not have that, unfortunately. So we're building some of that. And that's, I would say, one of the advantages of having had a superintendent come from Washington is that they had some of those things in place. And they also heard, I believe that Dr. Kapista's district did some additional work. And so that's our goal, to work that way, but definitely need to have some good education. And then also when we get engaged in all those sessions of including groups in the planning and the strategy building teams that we have, as far as looking at what we're doing in the future, having that data out there for our community to see, that is going to be really helpful for them to be informed when they're going into that process.
Okay, thank you, Brian and Julie. Next up, we have nutrition services.
So joining us this evening is Alex Singer, Manager of Nutrition Services. Welcome, Alex.
Thank you, thank you.
Should have had him bring a cake.
She's talking celebration. I'm looking for a cake.
Fantastic. Well, in my report, I have some good information. So to start off, we this year we were able to promote 3 of our staff internally to either higher positions or positions with more hours for them. That was great to develop our team. That's what we strive to do. We have two new staff members, Irma and Tricia, have come in to join us, and started off really well and making good inroads with being with the solid parts of the team. And probably most importantly, and for us, highest on everybody's mind, is we did finally start CEP this year, the Community Eligibility Program, which allows us to continue to serve free meals to all students, all meals, the entire year, and for the next 3 years as well. So we have to recertify. We kind of got a taste of that during the dark days behind us, and we're back to the older serving style. And during COVID, we were doing the non-congregate grab and go meals. They could come by, pick them up, or they'd get a week at a time, and which really benefited the students and children of the community and of their families. And now that we're back to in building service, we're back to the previous method, was generally offer versus serve, where students get to go to the salad bars, pick what they want at the offering bars at the majority of the schools, and get what they want, make sure they find the veggies they like, whether it's kiwi or, all kinds of different fruits. It's kind of surprising to see how many kids get excited when they see something different. Like, I have that at home, I haven't had it here. So, they enjoy it, and we find students throw away less when they get to pick the fruits and vegetables that they're interested in. Supply chain has improved. We still have a few outages here and there, but as overall, we're getting less outages and more deliveries on time. We implemented a new point of sale system this year that will help us do some better tracking, and we're rolled out. And the big thing with the students in the secondaries is the keypads went from being tiny to really big and well lit and bright, and they have a display so they can see the numbers they punch in, so they know if they type in wrong when they can back up. And we've got a good reception from the students for that. We have a new nutrition program as well. We're still in the process of rolling it out. We got, speaking of supply chain issues, we had some trouble getting some of the information that we're inputting into the system. So we're still in the phase of getting that entered and organized before we can roll it out. I feel it'll be a big step ahead from what we've had in the past. And fiscally, last year we did well. We came out in the black. We came out ahead of with positive fund balance. We we were almost matched exactly the number of meals we served the year before. We were less than 0.3% higher, but we were close. It was still a good, it was good. And, you know, really to summarize up the nutrition department, right now, we're really working hard to meet our motto of feeding student success. You know, if we feed the students, it gives them the energy and the power within themselves to learn and be energized to learn and be there at school.
So, Alex, a quick question on
Yes.
fiscally, at this point then with CEP, you're not collecting any money from the kids, is that correct?
Correct.
We don't have to have that discussion on how much to
We
run.
don't have that discussion. And this, the CEP is, if you, once you qualify, you're good for 4 years. Now we have the opportunity to revisit every year, and if we have a great year, we can re-up early and to extend that, and we intend to look at that every year as we go through to take advantage of it as best we can. And hopefully, there's a lot of work being done on the national level to make this a permanent thing for all, not CP, but, you know, no charge to students for meals, because, you know, it's not the students' responsibility to feed themselves and, you know, be there in a place where they can learn. So if we can move forward with that, hopefully on the national level, this will become something we can reminisce about in the past, but, you know, this is still a good step forward for us. We've been talking about this since I came here 5 years ago, and we're finally able to move forward with it. So it's a positive thing.
And then I would just say next week, just a reminder, it is National Lunch Week. So if any board member would like to join me for lunch, I'm going to be out in the schools. I have not been able to do lunch in schools the last couple of years, so I'm very excited for this upcoming week to just and throughout the year to just sit and eat lunch with kids and just see and work with our staff and just see the opportunities and the great things that they do for our students throughout the day. So thank you, Alex.
And I'd be happy to be part of the tour.
Absolutely.
Either questions if needed. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. All right, that brings us to the superintendent's report.
So today, my report is specific to policy. So the policy subcommittee of the board met for the first time a few weeks back and has reviewed 3 of the 5 policies we are presenting this evening. Just a reminder, all policies go through up to 3 readings. The first one is just for information only. And then again, at that point, if there's no concerns, goes into the consent agenda to be approved. But at any point, a board member or staff, as today, because we did pull one out, we need to do further review, could pull out to come back either for a second reading and then a final 3rd reading. So again, 2 were added by the district as there were minor changes that we felt the subcommittee would support. As the policies can have up to 3 readings before approval, if a policy is put forth by staff, it will be reviewed by the subcommittee again before posting for a second reading, and if necessary, a 3rd. Because again, some of the times when the policy committee meets and we have some things that we're reviewing, we may need to put some policies on, but again, we want to make sure those policies go through that subcommittee as we move forward. So I felt it was important to share that process because we did add in 2 more with minor changes and then removed 1. So the first one that we're reviewing today is JBAA. And one of the things we have done as a school district, when I came to Central, we did a review of all of the policies. So our policies are in compliance, but now we're going back through with a little bit more of a key lens on policies where there may be recommendations coming from the Oregon School Board Association or policies that we feel are important for us to have. So we're just starting at, there's different sections. So we're starting with the students first. Next, we'll move to staff, and then we'll move into the different sections within our policy handbook. So the first is JBAA. It's specific to section 504 for our students. This is a new policy and it clarifies the process of 504. It gives specific directions and steps in the process of which the district already has in place. So again, this is just a policy. If a student may have a medical concern or potentially something else that has come up, one of the things I always use as a good example for people to understand why a 504 process is a student that may be diabetic, It's important for them, as an example, to get a 504, because if a diabetic student were to go low in a class, they can exit out of the class by having that 504 plan in place, just as one example. Lots of examples of that, but I use that one because that's a easy one for people to understand what that looks like. This policy is being highly recommended and was reviewed by both leadership within the district and the subcommittee of the board. The goal of this policy is to continue to give clarity to families should they feel this is a necessary step to support their student and their education. The next one, JEA, compulsory attendance. This is just an update to the policy identifying the process for regular attendance in public schools, as well as clarifies processes for families who may choose an alternate schooling. So again, I think we just needed some clarity, a few updates in that policy. We were going to come to the board with JECB, which is admission of non-resident students. We actually removed it. There's some things we need to review with the subcommittee that came up even in a meeting late today. So we will take that back to the committee to review and bring back to the board in November. JECA-GBH, which is custodial rights and access to students' education information. This is a new policy also. It's there to articulate the rights of parents in regards to their students' education and educational records. This was reviewed by the subcommittee with a recommendation to as it gives clarity to parents and administrators of the process. So this is one that we have been using in theory, but it was really important, I think, for us to put in policy. Sometimes we do have things that come up into the building where court orders come into play, et cetera. A lot of that is tied to this policy to give administrators as well as families clarity on what we can or cannot give, depending on what those records may say. So that's just, again, one of those that we feel needs to be put into policy. The next one, JF-JFA, is student rights and responsibilities. There was a minor change to this policy already approved by the board, but any language change is required to go through this process. We literally have one word changed in there, but it has to go through the whole process again. So that's one of the ones that we wanted to put on that has not been reviewed by the subcommittee and will be this upcoming week. And then the last one, JOC, legal names of students. This is an update to the current policy to align with the district's goals and values, focused on the whole child and the success of every student. So again, we just started doing those updates. Again, we'll do one final review of these with the subcommittee this upcoming week, and then they will get put forth either as a second reading because there needs to be clarity, or put into the consent agenda to move forward. That is the end of my report.
Okay. Which brings us to the board report. And basically the dates that you see there, our next work session is the 24th, which is 3 weeks, right? And the long range facilities planning committee already met on September 29th. So we are going to meet again on October 6th, this Thursday. Is that right? Thursday, yeah. And the next board meeting is on November 7th, which is our normal time, and at 6:30. And just a reminder that the OSBA conference is, I think, still open for registration. If you're interested in going, Emily could take care of that. So, and that brings us to our consent agenda, which includes a financial report. Hopefully you've had a chance to take a look at that. Approval of last month's minutes. One of the smaller personnel recommendations I've seen in a long time. And the two policies that we had for first reading last month on educational equity and student conduct. I would at this point entertain a motion for approving the consent agenda.
The consent agenda.
I'll second.
All right. It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor, and I will be voting since we're down to our minimum of 4 for a quorum. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. That is unanimous. And that brings us to our business agenda, of which we have none, which means we now have an opportunity for comments from individual board members. It should also be short because there's only 4 of us left here.
I would like to extend a congratulations to the football team for beating West Albany for the first time in a long time. So, the Panthers, well done.
Anything else? Anything from our newest board members?
Nothing except for thank you for not saying anything about my camping hairdo. Because I am camping right now.
It looks similar to mine.
Oh, great. Sorry.
All right. With that, then, there are items there for future meetings, which are part of our ongoing schedule of updates and things to cover. And we are now headed to our second executive session of the evening under provisions of ORS 192660, the open meeting law. The Board of Directors will enter executive session for the following purpose: to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to negotiate real property transactions. And we will adjourn to that, and then most likely will reconvene at the end of that if there is a vote required. With that, we are